Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here on our weekly Roundtable show presented by AU Club with Jason Caldwell and Phillip Marshall as Auburn gets set for its homecoming game Saturday, day game inside Jordan-Hare Stadium, 11:45 Central Time on SEC Network, as Auburn had no issue dispatching Ball State over the weekend. Could have been even more of a decisive game, although it was an extremely decisive performance when you look at pretty much everything about that one. But Phillip, there's no question that South Alabama is an uptick in competition. You've heard it all week long from Hugh Freeze that his team needs to be focused and prepared. And, we talked about all those things last week leading up to Ball State, but Auburn knows how motivated South Alabama is going to be. And at the end of the day, this is a good team that almost beat a good Tulane team and is gonna bring a big fight to Jordan-Hare on Saturday.
Oh, I don't have any doubt about it. And you when you said they needed to be focused against Ball State, they needed to be focused so they didn't have a game that was ugly and they won by 17 points or something. This is different. Frankly, I'm surprised they're playing this game. You want to know the truth. But because South Alabama, much like Troy, who they have yet to play, is good enough that if you play bad, you can be in trouble. Now, if Auburn plays anywhere near the top of their game, they won't be in trouble. But if they are not focused, if they're not excited to play, then they could have problems. I look for them to be focused and be excited to play. But at 11:45 kickoff, that it won't be the same atmosphere as what they like the new guys, what they experienced last Saturday with the night game, even with it being Ball State, the first game of the season and packed house. And I know it's a sellout, but I doubt it will be full. Maybe that's one of the reasons for white jerseys is to try to add a little spark. I don't know, but if they play well, they'll win. If they don't, they'll have a fight on their hands.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Phillip. I think you brought it up. Auburn's going to wear white, as Jason reported today on our site for the first time since they played UT Martin back in 2008. And I agree with you. I think that aside from the fact that this is a whiteout game and an opportunity for you to wear white in a day game at home and, wear a lighter colored jersey, I think more so than that. And we'll see what Hugh Freeze says tomorrow, Jason, but, a little bit of a spark, maybe a little bit, something fun to be able to put on the jerseys that everybody, really likes Auburn's all white uniforms, and the players really like them as well. But yeah, as Phillip mentioned, this is that Ball State atmosphere. I mean, you get backed up on the goal line. It was almost like the fourth quarter of the Iron Bowl. I mean, the way the student section was treating that, it was amped up. It was a great atmosphere. You can't slop around for too long in this game because South Alabama is gonna try to take advantage. But the white jerseys thing is interesting. That at least adds a little bit more intrigue to this game because it's something we're not used to seeing in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Well, yeah. I think starting fast is very important in games like this because the longer it's close, the more South Alabama will become convinced they can win, and the harder they can be to deal with.
Yeah, something interesting for me is that I honestly don't think Auburn's played very well the first 2 weeks. They've won and they've done what they needed to do, but they've handled business. And they've done that very well. But as I was standing on the sidelines in the middle of the first quarter last Saturday night, I was thinking, if this is 2 years ago, halftime of this game, it's probably 20-17.
Yeah.
That's how much different the talent level makes it feel because they weren't really sharp. They made some plays, did some things, but it was not like they were just bombarding them like hit on all cylinders on either side of the ball. And the defense dominated the line of scrimmage. They gave up some plays in the secondary. A couple of
a complete mismatch.
Yeah, and so that's the thing.
Yeah, the ball, it was a total mismatch.
Yeah, but I thought,
literally couldn't do anything.
Yeah, but I thought, to me, it was like workmanlike. But I think that's the thing. If you're Auburn right now, that you have a really good feel for is that, look, hey guys, you won 2 games, beat what's a pretty good Baylor team. Ball State's not very good, but you haven't played your best football. That's still out there, and so that's still within reach. And I do disagree with you guys on one thing. Auburn fans are hungry. They haven't won in a long time. I think it's going to be packed Saturday, and I think they're going to be into the game because people want to see a team win. And so I think they feel that for the first time in quite a while. It's homecoming.
And I also think that most fans recognize that this is different.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. It's homecoming. It's also homecoming. So I think
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. So it probably will be.
So I think it's going to be good. But I do agree one thing, and I said it. Look, I don't look at lines. Whatever the line is going to be too much. Now Auburn may win the game by that much, but you've got an Auburn team that's going, look, man, just go handle business, improve, take steps. You got a team on the other side going, hey, it's a Super Bowl. Like this is Joe Namath and the New York Jets coming to the Jordan-Hare Stadium, just like Jacksonville State's done in the past. I mean, like that's just what you're going to see Saturday. So for Auburn, you're right.
South Alabama's never had this opportunity against Auburn, Alabama. And,
yes. So you're going to, you got to go take care. Again, it's another take care business week if you're Auburn.
I would give Major Applewhite and his players credit, though. They haven't, at least not that I've seen, they haven't spouted off any as far as proclaiming that they are going to win. In fact, I thought what he said was pretty classy. Thanked Auburn for playing the game, which he should, because if I was Auburn, I wouldn't be playing this game.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Like I wouldn't play Troy. I wouldn't play a team in the state that's good enough to beat you if you don't play well. To me, that's the whole key to scheduling those guarantee games. And but it is good. Millions of dollars have been kept in the state by Auburn playing all these
for the last decade. Yeah, they've kept millions of dollars. Yes.
Yeah, and Hugh Freeze echoed that today. I asked him to write about it on Thursday morning. The importance of keeping these kinds of games, and Freeze said almost exactly what you're talking about, Philip. He said, "Look, I wish they weren't as good as they were, and that they didn't, come in here and it be a huge game for them." But he said that's just part of it. He mentioned, look, it's easy for people to get to these games. It's easy for people to, for travel from stadium to stadium. And you mentioned what Major Applewhite talked about this week. He said, look, they've had this one on the schedule for a few years now, been looking forward to it ever since it first got scheduled. And he said, it's interesting. He said, I would love to play Auburn or Alabama every year. That's what Major Applewhite said. And it's like, well, one of those you will every once in a while, but obviously that's something Auburn fans talk about pretty often, is that Auburn obviously has a propensity to schedule these types of games, whereas Alabama has not in its history scheduled as many in-state.
Has Alabama ever played in modern times an in-state team? I can't think of one.
They have not played an in-state team in modern football. The only time they've
early 20th centuries they played those games. Birmingham Southern.
They have not played those games. No.
Yeah, and so Auburn
because if you're South Alabama, it's not a conference game. You got everything to gain and nothing to lose. If you get wiped out, well, that's because you were supposed to get wiped out. But if playing close is a boost, even, and winning, of course, which I'm sure Major Applewhite believes is possible. He also knows that there's better players on. Auburn's got more and better players than he does. But Auburn, the 2017 team, which was a really good team, they struggled against Mercer because they turned the ball over 5 times.
Yeah,
you turn it over 5 times Saturday, you'll probably lose.
Yeah, you'll be in trouble. And that was the thing. That team wound up being good. They weren't very good early.
Right.
They wound up being a good team. This team has started off at least in a much better position than even that team did. Now, do they have the upside that team did? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, can you protect the football? And then you look at South Alabama right now, and you look and go, to lose this game is going to mean your defense needs to play like it did against Baylor. Because on paper, South Alabama's defense does not stop the run very well.
Right.
That's not a great position to be in playing this Auburn team. Now, could be some questions about who's at running back, but you still got the same offensive lineman in front, and you still got Jackson Arnold that can run the football too. I think Auburn's going to be able to run the football and score
points.
points.
The box every time they'll throw it.
Yeah. So
that's I was on a radio show with Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator Al Borges today, and he really, really likes Jackson Arnold. He said that he looks like he's completely comfortable in what with his offense, and he mentioned Peyton Thorne. He said he's got some talent and got some things. He said, but he never looked like he was completely comfortable in doing what they do, mainly the RPO stuff. Which Peyton himself said when he got here that he had never run an RPO offense before.
Yeah,
and so whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson said all the way back in the spring, I think, that it was the exact same system that he ran in high school. And so Freeze talked about that today, you know, that familiarity with him. So far, so good through a couple of games. Yeah. It'll be interesting to kind of see, because I don't think you might have as many opportunities to just for this to be a work on you kind of game. It'll probably be a lot more, it'll be more competitive than that.
So well, you would hope to get it over with, so it is that.
Sure.
And but I'm sure they would love nothing better than put Deuce out there for the whole second half. But
yeah, like last week you were like, look, there's no quarterback runs, so there were no. This week you're not afforded that luxury. You're going to have to run your offense and do those things. Yeah, can you get to the point where you go, hey, now you can look at other guys? That'd be great. But last week you went into it already halfway there, basically, with an offensive plan. I think this one you're going to have to run Jackson Arnold. You're going to have to do those things that you do normally in an offensive game.
Well, you know, Cam Newton in those kinds of games like last week against Chattanooga and whoever else they played that year, he could have had 2,000 yards rushing if he would have run the ball.
Yeah, pretty much.
But he didn't run the ball in those games.
Speaking of, and you asked about the line, Jason, 24.5 still today. That it's too big for me.
It's a lot. I agree. It'd be different if this was a team that had, 10-9 games, things like that. They've scored some points now. I think that probably is an 0-2. Because again, we're heading into week 3. This is almost like the first week where I start to really figure out maybe what teams are. Because even in week 2, you might have played one good team, but you don't know how good that team was. We got a little bit more maybe idea of what Baylor's offense is all about last weekend. Now, SMU's defense is not gangbusters either, but they're not bad.
That's the third straight time that guy's passed for over 400 yards.
So you look and you go, okay, now Auburn's defense has already played
LSU and Auburn. So
they've already played a really good offensive team. And then last week, obviously, Ball State was no match. But you go, okay, this defense pretty salty so far. I think that's what people are counting on. Going, Auburn's going to score enough and not going to give up a bunch. And this South Alabama team has some talented players on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Jason, I was going to say, talk to us about that personnel. You had a story today previewing South Alabama. Hugh Freeze was very complimentary of the complexity of their system. He said it's going to test Auburn on defense in that regard.
Yeah, averaging 34.5 points a game, and you look at them, and it starts with a quarterback. Bishop Davenport he's a physical, 6'2", 210, athletic guy that can run and do some things. And so, it kind of starts there for them. And Major Applewhite, we've seen kind of his offenses because he was, at Alabama. Obviously, he's done some things, so it's going to be multiple. They're going to be able to spread the field, get in the shotgun, run the quarterback some, do those things, and so that's probably where it starts for South Alabama. You look at, but Devin Voisin is, we were talking about it before we came on the air, a 7th-year wide receiver, and you look and go, he's had some injuries, but when he's been healthy, he has been really, really good. And so you look at him this year already, and he's put up some numbers. Had 160 yards last week against Tulane and done some things. This year he's got 15 catches for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns in just 2 games. The next highest receiver on this team has 5 catches. That's a tight end. Then you go 4 at wide receiver. So basically when they throw the ball, it is almost always going to Devin Voisin. So he's a speedster, not the biggest guy, but Anthony Eager is a big play guy, has but only 4 catches for 60 yards, and one of those is 34 yards. Jeremy Scott's another guy with 3 catches for 53 yards, but 34 yards. You look at them, I think they got 7 or 8 passes in 2 games that are over 25 yards. So like they're looking to hit some home runs, make some of those plays. And then, running back, Ole Miss transfer Kentrell Bullock, 47 carries for 236 yards and 3 touchdowns, 234 yards, excuse me. Bishop Davenport, the next highest carries on the team with 15. Then you got another running back with 11. So you're looking to go quarterback run, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver have almost exclusively been their go-to guys. Yeah. So that to me makes it a little bit more difficult for South Alabama because they're so dependent on 3 guys. If you're Auburn, where you can start to lean a little bit, but pretty veteran offensive line group. They got some guys back that have played a lot of football. Defensively is where it's interesting because they don't have a ton of size up front, in this group, and that's made it difficult for them. They've given up 408 yards rushing in 2 games.
And that's one of those games against Morgan State.
One of those games is against Morgan State. And so you look at it and you go, that is not the greatest sign when you start talking about having to deal with Auburn and this offensive line group. These guys, we saw Jeremiah Cobb and we've seen him continue to get better and better. And you look up front for South Alabama, and Tyler Thomas is 6'5", 259. It's kind of listed as their bandit, but that's one of their defensive end guys. Nose guard, got some size, 6'3", 296, 6'3", 324, big guys in the middle. One of those guys is Steven Johnson, former Auburn player from right down the road, Columbus, who's transferred to South Alabama. He's kind of the backup in the middle for them. But then the defensive tackle position, 6'3", 273, 6'3", 290. That is not very big when you start talking about what Auburn has size-wise up front on the offensive line. Then linebacker, you look and go, Myrick is 226, Darius McKee's 230. Now, Tyrell Johnson, 6'2", 248, is called their Wolf, which would be Auburn's kind of buck linebacker. He's probably their best player. And so you look and they got one of those guys but you think about 248, 226, but you got 259 and 273 up front. The big question the first 2 weeks for teams has been how will they play Auburn's offense? We saw Baylor play really soft in terms of the safeties, going to keep those guys in the middle of the field. But they still played on the edges, on the corners, a little tighter. They just knew they had safety help. Last week, Ball State just look, we're going to play off the wide receivers. There was more room last week than any game I can remember. Nathan, I know from the press box you can see it, but they're backed off guys everywhere. And they're like, okay, we'll take these 8-yard throws all day long. If the good thing about this Auburn offense is that if you make the right decision, it's going to be almost impossible for somebody to take it all away. In the last couple of years, you look and go, man, there's some games where there's nothing they can do. They can take everything away from you because you're not good enough. This team is good enough if you make the right decisions. And for a team like South Alabama, Phillip, historically, it's always been you start closer to the line of scrimmage and do that. Baylor didn't do that. But you got to think South Alabama is going to try to be really aggressive and go, look, we're going to make you throw the football and make plays. For a team that's given up 400 yards rushing in 2 games, I would think that if you don't stop the run, it's over with.
Now the question is, if they say they're going to take the run away, can they do it?
Can they? I don't know if they can anyway.
That's what we're going to see, obviously. But knowing if they're matching them in line of scrimmage like that,
they're going to take some shots.
He won't bother to run and he'll throw it.
They're going to take some shots. And, we saw, Nathan, a lot of Eric Singleton in preseason camp and how good he was. And in the Baylor game, he was probably, 75% probably out there. Last week, we saw a guy that was closer to what we saw in preseason camp. And it changes the game for Auburn's offense. I think now that guy healthy.
It changes the game for Cam Coleman.
It does. And so I think now you can build on those things even more. It's going to be really interesting to see the dynamics of the passing game now that you've kind of put some of these pieces back together a little bit.
I thought it was funny. Eric said after the game Saturday, this is the transfer portal age. Said that's the first Auburn game I've ever been to. He'd never even been to a game at Jordan-Hare Stadium before.
Well, I think post game, Jackson Arnold had to ask people where he went. Same thing.
Yeah.
Like he played in a game. Well, he didn't play, but he was at a game in Oklahoma last year, but the other end of the stadium, and they just got on a bus and left. When the game was over, he goes, "Hey, where do I go?" He didn't know where to go to get out of there to get back to his vehicle or wherever he's. Yeah. So that's the age we live in. The recruits, those kids have been so many games that it's old hat for them. Some of these guys, I'm sure Xavier Chaplin and Mason Murphy and those guys were like,
they never been there either.
We don't know where to go. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Singleton. It's just the overall, makeup of this offense. I think when you can just play the RPO game, there's a lot going on for them this year. You mentioned having different ways to take them away. It's so much more difficult when you can say, all right, well, we're going to get you looking side to side with Eric Singleton, or all right, well, we're so successful just plugging the ball up the middle running. It's just, maybe in previous years you take away a guy like Darquez Hunter and it's like, what? I mean,
correct.
They had receiving talent and they were putting up a lot of yardage, but were you really trusting Peyton Thorne to drop back over and over and over again?
And plus, Cam Coleman was hurt a lot last year.
Correct.
Well, and so last year it was big plays, and you can make some explosive plays, but completing 4 or 5 passes and extending a drive, that wasn't happening. And Phil, we were talking about earlier, Jackson. To me, the most important thing so far in 2 weeks for Auburn's offense has been patience, because now I think they feel like, we talked about this in preseason. I think for the first time since 2017, it feels like a team that doesn't have to do something extraordinary to win a game against a good team.
Right.
And I think when that happens, you can relax and go, okay, just don't force it. Take what's there. May go make a play. And that's where Horatio Fields comes in. He's going to be the beneficiary of maybe as much as anything. That guy may lead this team in receptions before this season's over with.
And he's very reliable. That's the thing. He's not explosive like Singleton or Cam is, but he's very reliable. And but I think that also along the lines of what you're saying, just like Baylor jumped out on him. But when you got the trigger guy and you know that he's going to make good decisions, and if you're behind 7-0, that's no big deal. You just go on and keep playing. And this team with its ability to run and throw, I think gives them a real chance to be really good on offense against most teams, if not all teams. But another thing they need to, they want to have happen. They want to come out of this game going into the next 3 games feeling good about themselves.
Yes.
They don't want to flop around and win by 7 points or something, or 10 points or whatever. They want to say, the players will think we're good, and we've shown it.
Yeah,
and we can be as good as Oklahoma. And maybe they are. I mean, to get back to what you're saying, Oklahoma, they scored 31 points against whatever directional school it was they played the first game. And they had a good game against Michigan, but I don't know how good Michigan is. And, I know a little bit about how good Baylor is, but they were good enough to win last Saturday. But you just really don't know yet for much anybody. I mean, Alabama's going to beat up on Wisconsin this Saturday because Wisconsin's not very good, but it's Wisconsin, and that'll get a lot of attention. But we'll see.
2 positions I'm watching on Saturday, Jason. We're talking about running back, but Auburn could be without both Damari Alston. Hugh Freeze said he's going to be a game time decision. And we know they're going to be without Darrell Robinson, who we've talked about this week, had the compartment syndrome on his leg and is going to be out for a while. And so, I mean, they will run the ball. And Jeremiah Cobb, I agree with you guys. he looks the best we've seen, not just because they played Ball State, but he looked that way against Baylor too, just a more comfortable running back in year 3. But Omar Mabson is in line to potentially be the number 2 running back in this game. Wanted to just touch real quickly on Alvin Henderson, a fellow freshman, actually a higher rated freshman than Omar Mabson was. But Hugh Freeze talked about it this week, and I thought it was a good glimpse into sometimes those situations are pretty black and white and easy. It's like, hey, just because a guy is a highly rated freshman doesn't mean you can just all of a sudden throw them into a situation, because the long and short of it is Alvin Henderson hasn't gotten a lot of reps within this offense. He's been the number 5 running back for several weeks going back to the preseason.
Maybe not even 5.
Yeah, well, we saw Justin Jones last week, and so it's like you just, they believe in Alvin Henderson's future. It has nothing to do with that. It's hard to just throw a guy in and say, hey, have fun preparing for an FBS team. Good luck.
I think it's pretty obvious they're planning on redshirt.
Yeah.
Which Saturday won't have any impact on that. And but good thing that Uriel was smart enough, I guess, to know he needed to get help quick when he woke up like that Sunday morning, because if you let that fester, it can be the end of your career.
Absolutely. Yes. And, it was, timing was of the essence. He got it done. They were able to get it. And I was told they were able to close the incision back up because it was done early enough. Had it not been, they would have had to leave the incision open, which could then have added to the timeline for this thing. So the only other one I remember was Josh Weldon. This was the same thing, Philip. You remember? I think it was on the flight back from Arkansas is when he had one on a plane. And then, but what it can happen, it can lead to lots of other issues, infections, all kinds of things, and ultimately even paralysis. So he was able to get it cleared up, which is great. And so, I think you're talking about Alvin. The toughest thing sometimes for people to realize is that, and here's the thing, I think he's got a bright future, but he was in basically a Wildcat offense in 1A football. And now you're like, we heard like Omar Mabson played 7A football, and still the difficulty of sticking your face in there as a pass protector and knowing who to block for a guy who's in 7A football is tough. For 1A football, you never done it. Like, you haven't seen that, because if he wasn't running it as a Wildcat quarterback, they were throwing it to him much more than likely. So that's where Justin Jones, older, experienced guy in a game like this, heck, we may see him earlier than expected if it's a third down, if it's one of those situations where they go, hey, look, we feel really good about this guy as a pass protector if we need to throw the football. You might see Justin Jones early in some of those types of situations.
Sometimes people don't realize there's a lot more to playing running back than taking a hand off and running with a football. And whether it's, like I said, picking up the pass protection, obviously, carrying out your fakes, doing this. There's a lot of things you have to do to be successful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just, especially like you said, for a guy that's played 1A football, I mean, that's very different than anything he's ever experienced.
Yeah, I mean, look at preseason camp. We were wondering about Durrell and obviously Jeremiah competing with Damari. And I think Damari could be the best running back on this team. But the reason that they were so comfortable going back to him over and over again is because he's experienced, and Derek Nix talked about it. He's the best pass protector.
Yeah, those two guys.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not so convinced that, and their issues weren't, deep last week in pass protection, but Jackson Arnold got sacked 3 times. I'm not so sure that not having Damari Alston didn't play at least a minor factor in that.
It probably did. And two, the last 2 times he got sacked. One time he ran out of bounds when he really should have just thrown the ball away.
I'm not even counting that one.
Yeah.
But that was one of the sacks.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the 4th sack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 3rd one he held the ball to him. The first 2, both on the first drive, weren't they? The first 2 sacks.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of it is it's a combination of things. One of them, Freeze said, look, we probably took our drop too deep, so you change the angle of guys trying to block. So combination of things, miss block on one probably, but it's a combination of those issues, and you're going to have those things happen, and
Sure.
that's part of it. You're going, okay, how do you respond? I do think that we're going to see more RPO throws. Now, if you get 3rd and long, then you got to do what you got to do. But last weekend was, hey, we're going to drop back and throw the football some, and they realized, okay, we got more work to do. To do that after a win is 100% what you're looking for. That's what you want.
Yeah.
If you go out there and play perfect football as a coaching staff, then you go, uh-oh, we're in trouble because there's nowhere to go. You're going down. That's going to. There's still plenty to work on after a 42-3 win over Ball State. That's a good position to be in.
Yeah, Hudall, you remember Hudall? He told me one time. He said people talk about execution, and they're right. He said, but it's a whole lot easier to execute when you know you're better.
Yep.
Than against an evenly matched team.
Okay. So to that point, Nathan, we talked about this after Hugh Freeze's press conference the other day because we were talking about red zone, and he went through a couple of things, and then he said, it helps when you have better players. And so we got done, and I said, been trying to explain that for a while, going, look, if you're not as good as those other guys, sooner or later you can dial up any play you want to, and a guy's got to go win a one-on-one. And if your guy's not better than that guy, you're not going to win many of them. When you start getting better players, all of a sudden you're a better play caller, red zone's better. All those things start to happen better because you're better players. And we're starting to see some of that with Auburn. Now, can they do that at Oklahoma? Can they do that at Texas A&M? That's the next step. But then you have to marry the better players with, okay, the right call and doing the right things.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet if you look at the best offensive lines in the country every season and the best quarterbacks in the country every season, all of a sudden their coaches are really good at dialing stuff up in the red zone. When you
and quarterbacks that make good decisions running the football in the red zone, because that's the guy you can't account for. Like Cam Newton's team, he was a freak, but because of what he did, it made them impossible to stop in short yardage and red zone. You just weren't going to do it. And you look at it.
Nobody ever stopped them in short yardage for an entire season.
No, and so I think that's the thing now. You look at it and go, Jackson Arnold's not Cam Newton, but he's a pretty darn good runner. And so you start to go, okay, how do you handle those things? And it kind of segues a little bit too, Nathan, to the biggest question right now for this team, in my opinion, and probably ours, is what happens outside 35 yards kicking field goals.
Yep.
Yeah.
That right now is the biggest question, because I think Alex McPherson is good inside that, is comfortable. When you get outside that, it starts to be a little bit of a strain.
The one he missed last Saturday when he was healthy, he kicked it up in the stands.
Yeah.
He missed last Saturday.
Yeah, but you look at this now, I really think one of the keys.
Well, I'm saying when he was healthy, but he's not healthy enough to do what you said.
Yeah,
healthy enough to get 35, 40-yard field goals, but he's not healthy enough to get 50-plus yard field goals.
No, I think now for this team, you start to go, what's it feel like when you get to the 35? To go, okay, right. Do you play for 4 downs? And depending on yardage, game situation, some of those things, I think that starts to be a real discussion.
Yeah.
And
who kicks it off Saturday?
Oh, I think Connor Gibbs is the kickoff man from here on out.
It looked to me like, he was.
I think Connor Gibbs is kickoff man, and I think Connor Gibbs is.
I think he gets the first shot at a longer field goal. I think they'll have a couple more opportunities, and then if it doesn't work, I think you're going to see them transition to, okay, we're going to punt if it's 4th and long. If it's 3rd and medium, then you give yourself 2 downs to get the necessary yardage for a 4th down. I think you start to do some of those things. But Connor Gibbs kickoffs, even into a pretty good wind, were towering and really good. And so I think that's at a minimum, I think he's got that job.
Have you guys ever seen as many 4th teams going on 4th down as we've seen this year?
Yeah, it's a movement.
It's like if you're at midfield or closer, unless it's 4th and 13 or 15, and even sometimes then they're going for it.
Yeah, no, and the chart has become the gospel, and there's still situational football that sometimes gets thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you got to remember situational football too, and going again, you're playing a team that's not very good offensively. You can punt the football and get it back. I mean, not give them field position at the 35, punt it to the 15, and make them go 85 yards. It seems like, but like Dave Aranda is a defensive coach and is just going full board fourth downs, which tells me he has no faith in his defense at all.
No, not at all.
And that's his defense. And so that's to me, he's like, we're not very good. We got to go score as many
Just like
points.
the way he said after the game that talking about why they played pass defense the way they played. He said we could not play man defense. We could not deal with matchups.
Yeah.
And so you do what you can do. And I remember, what year was it? Spurrier's last year at South Carolina when they came to Auburn.
And Auburn,
they went on every fourth down, no matter where they were. And they only lost by 7 points.
Yeah, well, and if you know you're going, then that was kind of my. If you know you're going to go, then it absolutely gives you. It's almost like playing Canadian football, where you're like, hey, you know, you only got 3 downs. If you know you got 4 downs and you're not going to punt the football and you're not going to kick a field goal, then it changes the way you're able to call plays. Because if it's second and 8. In second 8 in a normal situation, you're probably going to be throwing the football. This second 8, you're going forward on fourth down. It's first and 8, and so it gives you a different opportunity. So I do think there's going to be some of those opportunities for this Auburn team. Maybe not this week, but I do think down the road we're going to see some of those opportunities even for this team, depending on circumstances.
Yeah, and this is a group that right now is tied for 12th nationally. It's just 2 games, third down conversion percentage. I think they've done, staying ahead of the chain.
That's it.
You have to do in an RPO system because it's all about chunking down the field. 2-game sample size, but they've done a good job of that so far. And I agree with you, Jason. I think it's sort of a mindset switch for this team. They're not blind. They're not naive. They can see that, the conundrum sort of continues at kicker. It's not as reliable as they'd like it to be. So regardless of who we see on short, long field goals, I agree. I think the next few weeks, unless something magically gets fixed, or maybe Connor Gibbs comes in and he's very consistent. He was really good last year.
Yeah.
He comes in, is really consistent on longer field goals. You might see that when they move on to the opposing side of the field, all of a sudden you're leaning toward 4-down territory as opposed to trying to play for a field goal. Yeah,
like I said, I think game situation, a lot of those things will factor in. But right now it kind of reminds me of, I don't know, there was a 1-year Anders Carlson year where basically anytime they crossed to 50, Gus Malzahn was going to kick a field goal, even if it was 56 yards, and it cost them field position over and over again. And I think now if you're Auburn, look, you have the opportunity to either give your offense another play or use what I think is a really good punter in those coffin corner and middle hang situations in Hudson Cock to create some field position. So I do think there's maybe a little bit more of that and less 50-yard attempts moving forward.
Yeah, I think it was 2018. I remember lots of people. It was his first year.
Yeah,
I think as Auburn's kicker. Lots of people at school would talk about that the Monday after games.
I mean, he could certainly kick them that far.
He could, but he got trotted out for every possible 50
every one of them, and it was like, hold on, let's slow it down and try to play a little field position every once in a while. Yeah.
Oh, Gus, classic. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, guys. Getting close to 40 minutes. Appreciate everybody for listening in tonight, this morning, whenever you listen to this podcast. Auburn is got one more game to go before SEC play ramps up, and after that, it is the grind and gets into the real season. But of course, Auburn's got to take care of business against what we've described is a good South Alabama team. It's a team that's going to be hungry coming into Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday. It'll be 11:45 Central Time ish on SEC Network. Should be weather seems like it's going to be pretty solid, and Auburn's going to be in their shiny white uniforms on Pat Dye Field. So for Jason Caldwell and Phillip Marshall, I'm Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all later.